Hey, I'm Steve from the YouTube channels Big Brain Party and Hardtail Party. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my filming recording studio / bike shop. So this is where I do a lot of my work. I do a lot of reviews, I do a lot of experimentation, I do a lot of bike maintenance and installs and building up of frames and tearing down of frames. The needs of my studio are to be able to film videos in here, have the audio sound good, have decent lighting, be able to show you what I'm working on, and have space to work on the bike. From the bike shop standpoint, I do a lot of maintenance on my own bikes, on friends' bikes. I teach a lot of kids on our local high school team how to work on bikes, so I have them over here. So I wanted a shop that was big enough to have a few people in here without feeling crowded. Over time, it's grown and grown and grown and evolved, and I'm really happy with how it is now. But let me take you through each thing that's in here, why I use it, how I use it. I'll put links to all this in the description below. Now in high school in the 90s, I worked at a bike shop. That's where I learned how to use tools, how to fix bikes, how to build bikes. It was wonderful education. That gave me a good understanding for which tools I'd need and which tools I wouldn't need. When I first started my YouTube journey, this is what I got. This is a Husky rolling toolbox with a built-in steel pegboard on it. So I could put my big stuff in the drawers and put my tools on here, and it was great for filming. It was just what I needed. After that, I moved out of my apartment and came to this shop where I built this really cool setup. I'll walk you through in a minute. Filing cabinets with a plywood deck, really huge. That's about 8 feet long, and an even bigger pegboard with under cabinet lighting and storage there. And then recently, I've upgraded to this wall where I think it films even better. And I've got everything I need on there. This is probably 12 to 15 feet wide. Just really nice to be able to fit all that in. I got all this stuff at a Habitat for Humanity restore. This was old bathroom cabinets, and there was like a sink countertop, and this was someone's kitchen cabinets. And I just pulled them out, painted them, put my own plywood table over the top, and have the dream setup right there. But let's go back to where it all started. This is where all my lubricants are. Let me walk you through this. This is Tri-Flow. It's the same as this, but in dripper bottle. This is amazing stuff. It's a lubricant that's got Teflon in it. They use it on sewing machines. They use it on watches. They use it on so many different things. Where most of us used to use WD-40 back in the 90s, we should have been using this because it has that Teflon that seeps in. I learned this from my bike shop. So great lubricant for anything like cables inside of housing or squeaky things on old bikes that you don't want to completely disassemble, but you want the squeak on. I really like Tri-Flow. Old sticky shifters, I just spray some Tri-Flow in there, work it around, and it's good as new. So Tri-Flow I use all the time. This is Napa Sil Glide grease. This is a grease for cars, and my buddy owns a mechanic shop here and says this is what we use for everything. I started using it. I'm a big fan of it. Here we've got finish line grease with Teflon in it. This is great, but I usually use this or another grease. I'll show you in a minute. This is my chain lube I use. This is Ride It Slick. I'm not affiliated with them. I just really, really like their product. It's half lubricant, half cleaner. It's got these microscopic things that work their way into your chain and push dirt out. So you put it on, work it all into all the chain, and then you wipe it off with a microfiber, and it pulls all the dirt off and leaves the lubrication in there. It works really well in Sedona, in Arizona, in dry, dusty conditions, and it keeps my chains really, really clean. Back here, I've got some Finish Line wet lube and dry lube. I use these for different things, sometimes wheel building. Up here, I've got some Bike Hardcore Whip Wipe. This stuff's interesting. It comes concentrated and you dilute it into a spray bottle. It's kind of just meant to kind of wipe the dust down and get your bike shining again. I don't wash my bikes a whole lot. I don't use the cleaner stuff a ton. In here, I've got DOT brake fluid for SRAM brakes and other brakes that use that. I've also got mineral oil. You never know what bike's going to come in and what I'm going to have to bleed, whether it's a high schooler's bike or it's a review bike that needs a bleed as well. I've got some lens cleaner for my cameras to keep my camera lens clean. Here's some of SCC Tech's grease. It's a really thin grease that I put in this little utility gun. I'm still trying to find my favorite application. I use it on wheels. It's not quite tacky enough to do headsets and bottom brackets, but it's a nice high quality grease. Here's some medium strength Loctite, but I usually end up using this. This is like a chapstick tube of Loctite, and you just dab that on your threads and it doesn't drip all over the place, and then you can assemble it. So I'm a big fan of that. This is my most used lubricant or bottle. This is my most used liquid in the shop. This is simple rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle. I use that all the time for cleaning brake pads, for getting grease off of stuff. I use it for just about everything. This is Finish Line Fiber Grip. It's a friction paste for carbon assembly for like stems on bars. It's a paste with little gritty glass beads in it so that when you cinch it down, the glass beads crush and act kind of like sand in there and create a grip in there so it won't slip. Carbon's very smooth, and you don't want anything with like a little protruding burr to bite down into it because it'll actually fracture the carbon. So this lets those little glass beads crush without hurting the carbon. So if you're doing seat posts or bars or something like that, this is what you want to use. Here's my travel bottle of Ride It Slick SEC Tech Chain Lube. I'll pop that in my little pocket or my backpack when I'm going riding. This is Ride It Flow. This is suspension performance treatment. So this stuff you put on stanchions, dropper posts or fork stanchions. It'll kind of clean them off and it'll keep them lubricating instead of getting sticky and that rubber on metal feel. Here's some touch-up paint for my spot bikes. That's a really unique hot tomato matte color. I'm really proud of them for sending touch-up paint with their bikes. More Loctite, slick oleum grease for fork rebuilds. Here is this Bike Hardcore chain and gear cleaner. This stuff's biodegradable. It comes in a concentrate, and I just put it in a peanut butter jar here for a chain degreaser. So if I've got a really gross chain or a brand new chain that I want to get all the stock grease off for a wax dip or a different type of lubricant, I'll put it in here, swirl it around, sit it in there for a couple minutes, pull it out. It's water-based. I'll rinse it down the sink. It can go down the sink, and then my chain's perfectly clean. This is my favorite degreaser right now. Here I've got some Pedro's wax lube. This I use on belt drive stuff when the belt gets squeaky. I know everyone says you don't need to lube belts and that they're silent. That has not been my case. And actually, when talking with some of the guys at Spot and Gates, they're like, yeah, if you live in the desert and it's dusty, sometimes you do need to lube it up with something like this. Back here, I've got some Finish Line degreaser and citrus degreaser. I used to use that stuff all the time in the 90s. Finish Line sent this to me. It's a pretty harsh feeling chemical, and I try to use a little bit more gentler stuff like Bike Hardcore and the SEC Tech, but every now and then I'll reach for those and use them. Here is one of my all-time favorite tools. This is the Milwaukee Inflator. I'll put a link to this. This thing's fantastic. You turn it on, set the pressure you want. Say we want 12 PSI and hit go. And it will pump air into your tire and stop when it hits 12 PSI. I use this for cars on road trips, but I really use it on bikes on road trips. I'll use this to seat beads on brand new tires, to inflate, to keep things topped off. Fantastic tool. Stock, it's just like this. You screw it onto a Schrader valve like your car and pump away. But since we use Presta, I got this sweet little Presta adapter that I'll link to as well. Okay, over here we've got an Abbey Bike Tool derailleur hanger. Extremely expensive for what it is, but it's a wonderful tool. I've got a rubber mallet, use that all the time, especially on cranks for getting them off. Once one crank arm's off, you pound the little thing through and there it goes. I use it for anytime I don't want a harsh blow with a hammer and I want something soft. In here I've got some dental picks, some hooks and stuff for fishing things and poking into housings and things like that. Got a Park Tool CT 3.3 chain tool. Got a pedal wrench. And got these cool Bursman chain whip vices. They just grab the cassette, so you don't need to use a traditional chain whip, which can be kind of awkward. So that's a one-handed chain whip use. I've got an Abbey Bike tool. This I use all the time. This is a cassette tool, both open there and with the 12 millimeter hole here. Fantastic tool. That one I do think is worth the money. This one, once you have one, you use it all the time, but man, I don't think most people can afford that. So it's the one to get if you've got the budget, but there are other options that work just as well for cheaper. Cable cutters, different types of pliers. These are chain master link pliers to pop them apart and put them back together. More pedal wrench and cutters, different tire levers. Got some scissors. These are snap ring pliers. This is my AccuGauge up to 30 PSI tire pressure gauge. So I use this all the time to ensure my tire pressure is a certain way on tire reviews and wheel reviews and comparing bikes back to back. This is the most accurate one that I've found. In here, I've got my paint pens. I use these all the time to mark things. So I've got like 6 wireless axis setups, and I put little dabs of paint between each to keep them straight. So my blue shifter goes with my blue derailleur. That way I don't mix them up. In here, I've got some black nail polish. I actually use this to touch up black parts that get scratched, just like this touch-up paint. Using nail polish or one of these paint pens, if you can happen to get it to match your bike, is a great way to hide Mars, and it's a great way to keep track of where scratches came throughout the day. So if it started all black and at the end of a ride, you got a big scratch on it and your derailleur's shifting funny, you know that scratch came from that ride. In here, I've got all sorts of pens. I've got paint pens. I use that all the time. This is a nice work surface. It's got use on it. It's got some nicks and scratches, but that's just life. And I installed this vise. I really like this vise. Super quality vise with these soft jaws. They're magnetic soft jaws on here. I'll make sure to link to that too. It's really cool since this is metal, it's magnetic, so I can use it as a regular pegboard, or I can put magnets on the back and just stick stuff to it. In here, I've got all sorts of things. Oh, it's a mess. I've got chain lubes, I've got cutters, steer tube cutters, I've got headset tools, fenders, tap and die, sandpaper. What do we have in here? Water bottle cages, tubes, tape, stems. You never know what stem you're gonna need to experiment with. I've got so many stems. In here we've got axles, chains, bash guards. In here I've got my pedals, more sandpaper, air springs for forks, stuff like that. And in here is kind of my catch-all. Man, this is a mess, it's embarrassing. But zip ties. This is a really cool way to store your zip ties. You just sacrifice one zip tie and put them all on there. And when you need one, you just pop it off the end. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. This is for taking pictures on bikes. It's pretty transparent, so you can use it as a kickstand to lean against the bike. And you can't really see it in the picture unless you're totally looking for it. Yeah, that's embarrassing. That is a mess, but that's my life. I'm not going to pretend it's different. Now we're getting into the parts bin over here. These are the parts I need to build up bikes and to do different experiments. We've got an RSD rigid fork, an NV mountain fork, a pike, a Stepcast 34, a Cane Creek helm. I love these helms as a bike builder. I can change them from 130 to 160 travel in about 10 minutes. MRP ribbon 27.5 fork. I've got some Wren forks in here, a Columbus rigid carbon fork, a SID 100 mil, and I've got a whole bunch of other forks on the bikes right now, but I'm always swapping stuff and trying different things to see what works best and to help me come up with my recommendations for my bike consult service. A lot of people will pick my brain, whether they want to upgrade a part on their bike or get an entirely new bike, and they pick my brain and say, hey, I've got $500 to spend on my bike. Here's my bike. Here's what I like to do. How would you spend that $500? And I consult with them and help them be able to maximize their budget in a way that makes the most difference. And being able to ride so many different forks and wheels and frames and bars and experiment, I'm able to give them more accurate info. Up here, we've got all the frames that are in for review. Newhouse Metalworks, Banshee Enigma, Celilo wood frame, Stanton slackline, Stanton switchback, a Bird 029, a Binary Maniac, my signature bike, the prototype Binary Maniac that's kind of swoopy, a Starling Roost. That's all I have right now, but those are always rotating and moving. Up here, I have my wheels. I have over 20 different wheel sets. I think wheels are one of the most important components on a bike, and they make one of the biggest difference. So I'm always trying to try new wheels and see how they compare. But yeah, I've got so many experiments going on with those wheels. Over here, we've got tires and inserts, cush cores, and things like that. Because of the volume of stuff I do, I run these in 50-meter lengths. This is brake cable that I use for my clamper brakes. I'm basically a bike shop with how much I use that, and I found it's cheapest on Amazon. And then I've also got a whole bunch of inner cables. This is my Shimano shift cable for droppers and stuff. In here, I've got bike racks for bike packing. In here, I've got camping gear, more camping gear. These are just little totes from Husky. These are all my grips. I love experimenting. I've got a whole bunch of Ergon and other grips in there. A whole bunch of lubricants in there that I'm not using. Extra flat pedals, tubes. What's in here? Tubolito stuff. Fire extinguisher. Hopefully we don't need that. In here I've got cranks and cassettes galore. GX, X01, NX, Shimano, Microshift, all sorts of stuff in there. This box is full of brakes. I've got tons of different brakes. And in here I've got camping gear, backpacking gear, bike packing gear. In here I've got a whole bunch of hip packs that were in for review. This box is full of droppers. There's about 10 different droppers in here because every frame needs a different length, a different diameter. I've got Axis wireless stuff. I've got cable stuff, P&W stuff. In here, I've got a whole bunch of product that came in for review that I need to film, and I'm excited to film that. More bike packing bags in here. That's how I keep all my different bags straight. Over here, I've got a whole bunch of handlebars and more products for review in there. These totes help me stay organized. It's a challenge staying organized and keeping all the parts together and being able to find them when I need them. I'm not the world's most organized guy, and this shop is usually way more of a disaster. All my friends who've come over can attest to that. I'm usually tearing something apart and throwing something on real quick and taking it for a ride, and I'm not very good at cleaning up after. But having a little system where all my parts go back at the end really helps. Here I've got a double work stand sitting in the middle of the shop. And then over here, oh, I just got this. This is so cool. This is a Remco electric bike stand. And one of my viewers works for them, and he's like, hey, I know you're sick. I know you're probably sick of lifting up bikes up and down. Can I send you one of these? And I absolutely love this thing. It's far more affordable than the big ones that go to the ceiling. It's far more portable. Fantastic design. I really, really love it. So you just clamp on your bike when it's low. It didn't come with this part. I provided this. And then you raise it up to the height that you want. That's become my main bike stand. I really like that thing. If you're doing a lot of repairs and stuff, being able to go up and down makes a big difference. This is my little step stool that I got at Home Depot. It helps me get access to the wheels and frames that I've got up there. Over here is toolbox number 2. We've got this measuring tape for spoke lengths and other things. I put in these little 4-pack outlets that plug in behind this to help me have power right on the front. This is the Park Tool VP1 patch kit. I don't need 40 patches, but I've got them. I patch tubeless tires from the inside all the time to keep them going. Over here, I've got this pad spreader tool, PP 1.2 from Park Tool. You stick it in and it pushes the pistons and the pads out on your brakes. This is a cool hardtail party wood adornment that one of my friends and viewers made for me. Super cool of him to do that for me. Here we've got a wheel dishing tool. Here are all the bottom bracket tools. These aren't even all of them. These are most of them that I need. But I had to buy so many because every bike comes with a different bottom bracket. When I'm experimenting, sometimes I take bottom brackets off. I experiment a ton with chainring size, crank length size, oval, round, whether I'm running single speed or geared or gravel, and 5Dev hooks me up. Absolute Black hooks me up. They make wonderful products, and I've just got these all ready to go depending on the experiment that I want to do. These are little magnetic strips from Harbor Freight that I've just screwed in, and they actually match up with the peg hole holes, which is awesome. And so I'll just use these for quick magnetic anything. So I've got that all along the bottom of this pegboard, which is really nice. These are Park Tool Allens that I use a lot. Foolishly, I threw away the little holder for them because I didn't know how it works. Now I know how it works, and I've got one over there that I'll show you, but this is how I use it for now. These are my little pliers, another magnetic bar. This is a T25. Here are all the rotors. This is so frustrating how some companies use a 200 front and some companies use a 203 front. So being able to swap wheels for tests and stuff requires a ton of rotors, and I just keep reusing them. Here I've got some hammers. This is a really cool wheels manufacturing bearing press. Here's my charger for my Milwaukee stuff, charger for my camera batteries, and a digital scale when I'm checking weights on things. And I connected this to this filing cabinet Pretty cool. It's just an old filing cabinet that I drilled the lock out so I can't accidentally lock it shut. And this is packing stuff, a label maker. I use this stuff all the time. Underneath here, I installed an LED light strip so that I could get some really nice under cabinet lighting. It looks great on camera and it looks great in person. Up here, I've got some old cabinets that I've just reused for keeping cool little things, fluids and stuff up there. These I use all the time. Okay, these are really cool. These are by Milwaukee and they kind of nest. And they're just these segmented toolboxes. So this is my break one where I've got pad spreaders and olives and barrels and cutters and bleed tools and all sorts of crazy stuff in here. It helps me stay organized. I've got that for all my little parts. I have one for chains, brakes, headsets, droppers, single speed, seat collars, derailleur hangers, hardware like nuts and bolts, consumables, valves, adapters, forks and bottom bracket stuff, adjustable angle headsets. That is how I keep all of this stuff organized, and those have been worth their weight in gold. In here I've got paper towels, more brake bleed stuff. Over here I've got my measurement tools. This is just a nice little metric T-square that I use, along with my geometer here. This is a device I created to measure the geometry of bikes. I can get the bike centered on there and then I can measure everything like reach, head angle, all those sorts of things. I invented this because I had a feeling that actual bike geometry was different from the geocharts, and I was right. In some cases it's spot on, and some companies are way, way off. So I always include true geo measurements in my first look videos. Over here we have some sound deadening panels. You'll see those kind of scattered throughout. It knocks down the echo in here so that it sounds a lot better on the audio. Usually, as a YouTuber, the sound is more important than the video. And man, I've struggled with sound a lot. And usually I'm recording on a nice little recorder like this, and then I get home, put it in the computer, and it sounds terrible for some reason. I've really struggled with audio. All right, here's the cabinet that I made out of an old bathroom. This has doors, all sorts of storage in here, and it came with drawers. This was someone's bathroom, and I just painted it, installed it in here, and put a top on it. And this is my go-to now. I will always build shops like this. Massive pegboard. It's wood, it's not metal. I wish it were steel, so it'd be magnetic, but that would have been really expensive. Over here at the far side, I've got these PB Swiss hexes. I like these. I really like the color-coded stuff. I like these a little better than the Wera ones because the Wera ones have a plastic tube that eventually comes off. More paint pens. This is my Monster Mitutoyo calipers. These are measuring calipers. Look at these things. Massive, but they're helpful for geo measurements. I can even do wheelbases, but that thing is 1 meter long. Super cool. Here I've got the Park Tool DAG3 Derailleur Alignment Guide. This is a lot cheaper than the Abbey tool, and it's every bit as good. So that's probably what I recommend for most people. This is my cable fishing tool, along with this little strong magnet for when you're doing cable routing and running cable through the frames. I hate doing that, but it's a big part of my job. This is a Park Tool tape measure that does both inches and centimeters. I use that thing all the time. Park Tool headset press. This is a rotor truing tool, the DT2. This is the BBT9 bottom bracket tool. I use this thing quite a bit as well. I've also got the socket, but I use that a lot more. This is a chain wear indicator tool. This is another pad spreader. You can see it looks like a bike rotor. You put it in there between your pads to push them apart. This thing is your little end crimper thing. If you ever wonder how bike shops got the perfect crimps on those little cable crimps, that's what they use. And here's Park Tool's chain pliers, like that takes the place of a chain whip. And this is the cassette tool. And I've got a Park Tool caliper up there, more cutters, scissors, chain tools, that sort of thing. And then down here, I've got that magnetic strip all along the bottom once again. This is my Mitutoyo angle finder. It's like a protractor, it's digital. It helps me measure seat angles and head angles. Under here, I've also got an LED strip as well for that lighting. And I've kind of fought with that. The LEDs don't work super well on camera. They kind of have this flicker. I'm sure you can see that. This is my most used thing. These are my Park Tool T-handle hex wrenches. I've color coded them so that they match the Wera and PB Swiss stuff. And I just know that red is 6, orange is 5, etc. And that's how I learned about all of those. More beautiful stuff up here. This one's special to me. This was my first Sea Otter with 5 Dev. Kind of a commemorative piece for me. Cranks, rotors, chains, hammers. I use this for getting rotors off all the time. These are my favorite tire levers. They're specialized tire levers. Just all sorts of tiny little bobs and ends that I use. This thing's really cool. This is a cardboard cutter. It's this Japanese, it's like this little knife it's serrated, but it's not like gonna slice your finger open unless you run it across it. But man, you can just cut right into cardboard or packing tape. I use that thing all the time. Now it's time to show you my all-time favorite thing in the shop, and it is these Klipsch The 5 speakers. They're Bluetooth and they sound absolutely incredible. I've got one up there and I've got one up there. And I've got these in my home too. I love music. I'm a musician, and sometimes I'm in here for 6 hours at a time building stuff. And being able to just pop on my tunes and have it sound great. They don't need to be loud to sound great. They just need to be high quality. And these Klipsch The 5s are so good. Definitely a staple to my shop, and I will always have them in my shop and my house after that. Now up top, next to my speakers, I've got another set of code breaks that I'm saving for a build. I've got 2 reverbs, because this saves me so much time. These are Axis reverbs, wireless reverbs, dropper posts. When I'm reviewing a frame, running the housing, it doesn't sound like much, but sometimes that'll fight me for 40 minutes. And being able to just throw a post in real quick for a review saves me so much time. And time is money when this is your job. And so I've actually got a bunch of 30.9. Those are the smaller droppers. And then I just run a shim when it's a 31.6. So I can maximize that. Those are super expensive. I paid for them. Anyway, that shim on there allows me to run a 30.9 in multiple seat tube sizes. So that's super helpful. It's surprising how many bikes are still 30.9 out there. Most of my droppers are 31.6, but I'll go to put it in and I'm like, wait a minute, they're still using a 30.9 seat tube. I wish everyone used 31.6. I just think it's a better way to go. Up here, I've also got SRAM Axis Eagle. That's also another time saver for me, is staying wireless when I'm putting bars on and swapping derailleurs and stuff. Up here, I store random things. Orange Seal sealant. In here, I've got a whole bunch of tires. Testing all those wheels, you need a whole bunch of tires to put on them. And then right in the middle is my camera on a tripod. You don't see this because it's usually what's filming, but it's actually kind of a pain working around this thing all the time when I want to work. I've also got a LED light for product lighting that I don't have in here right now. It's just a little too cluttered. But this is a film studio. It is a recording studio for audio. And that's where the magic happens. I hope you learned something, and I hope you're able to take away a few tips like, that's how I want to store zip ties, or I didn't know that lubricant existed. I need to get one of those, or that tool. I've designed this to be a no-nonsense, simple shop that has everything I need and nothing I don't, and it does that so well. I've been doing this for years and years and fine-tuning this, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out. Once again, links to all this in the description below. What did I miss? What tool is out there that I should have in my shop, but I don't? And how did you learn something from this? Let me know. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.